don't drive through it, 1 to 2 feet of water, as I tell you, floats a car. So it may sound like, you know, being silly, but it's for real. You turn around, don't drown when you're facing a situation like that. And of course, if we still have any of these downpours into the night as it gets dark, then you have to be even extra cautious, because now you can't really even see exactly what you may be running into. Now, again, we've been seeing some rotation with this cell just a little bit north of Newport, Rhode Island at times, and then, of course, this other cell right over here in northern Connecticut. So those are the two that I think have the potential, based on radar signatures, of possibly spawning small tornadoes with them. So those are the cells we're following. Remember, we have all this heavy rain, this tremendous band coming through, causing all that flooding in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and now on into parts.
And we do have a tornado on the ground. Last check, it was in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's gone for Manchester, Connecticut. It's gone further than that, obviously. So this thing is lifting up into Massachusetts. May affect communities with, you know, there could be other places where some of the stronger winds above are brought down to the surface in parts of Worcester County as we go through time. So reviewing this again, the tornado is on the ground, is moving north at 40 miles per hour. We're at 512 right now. And according to radar, could be roughly in the area of East Longmeadow near 530, near Wilbraham around 536, Palmer 542, and at Ware 553. It's not a huge, wide, incredibly big tornado, but still few isolated places within those towns could be affected by that. Going back into eastern Massachusetts now, again, there is nothing at the present time to indicate any storms with any rotation. Does that mean we're out of the woods? Not necessarily. This disturbance is moving to the northeast, and at any particular time there could be isolated spots where some rotation could be developing, and we might realize that on the ground with some damage or some very strong winds. But for the most part, most places are just getting heavy rain and an absence of strong winds. There's a breeze blowing, but in isolated pockets, some wind could be brought down to the ground and some damage should occur. It's not a widespread event. This is all moving off to the northeast, and we're moving into places like Brockton and going through Milford shortly. So this is very heavy rain lasting into the early evening hours. If you have to go out in the next couple hours, you need to plan on allowing a lot of time for travel, and please drive safely, because the visibility under these rain, under some of these cells of rain is really poor. You can hardly see anything if you're out on the highway. It's raining so hard. Again, there's not very much lightning here, but we'll keep you posted, and I'll go check with Joe and see if any new information is out on this tornado warning. Jack and Lisa, back to you momentarily.
Okay, and Barry, we're just getting word that Munson is calling in extra emergency personnel, including firefighters, just in case this weather becomes a problem in that area.
Munson, I think one of the areas hit last June
Right.
1st when we had that E3 that ripped through. And remember, we had 2 tornadoes that followed basically the same path. If you're just joining us, we're going to stick on our weather for a while because we have a tornado warning in effect. A tornado has been spotted on the ground outside of Hartford, Connecticut, moving to the north and heading toward the Massachusetts border. In addition to that, we have a tremendous amount of extremely heavy rain and some thunderstorms. You see where Worcester looks like it's ready to get really clobbered, and much of Massachusetts is going to be hit with some very, very heavy rain tonight. And I think Barry has done a very good job, Lisa, in pointing out to us that even though there is a watch throughout all of Massachusetts, the likelihood of a tornado forming in your neighborhood is relatively small right now, unless you're in that corridor where they've actually spotted one right now. New information is coming into our weather department. Barry Burbank is huddling with Joe Joyce. They're looking at the radar. They're getting information exactly what's being spotted. As Lisa mentioned a moment ago in Munson, they've called in extra personnel. We do know in that area near Hartford where it touched down that a number of trees have been knocked down. And we don't know about actual property damage, but know the trees have been down. At least one of the major roadways in that area has been closed, at least for now, because of the extremely heavy weather.
We also know that in Connecticut, the winds whip through at 100 miles an hour. This storm that Barry was talking about, the tornado, is moving at about 40 miles an hour. And we'll be putting up the names of the towns that may be in the path of that tornado, where the warning will apply as we continue with this newscast. The radar gives you a sense
around Millbury, likely causing some localized flooding over time. So we'll show you the bigger picture now as we widen out. and put this into motion. And I think what you can see is if you look towards southwestern Connecticut, it's pretty much a done deal. So it's this area right in here that we have to continue to follow as all of this continues to move along. Right in here, all of this. This is where the torrential rain is located, and this is where there could be 1 or 2 cells that could be bordering on being a tornadic, certainly enough to cause some wind damage over time. And I think you can see by the motion, everything is moving north-northeast over time. We'll switch back to our other graphic system for you. And once again, that tornado warning is in effect. It's in effect until 5:45 p.m. And notice that does cover Hartford and Springfield, as you can clearly see. And that's the tornado warning. Okay.
Welcome to Longhorn Steakhouse. Come in and try our new 3-course.
Plymouth counties, and we could show that. And that goes until 6:15. So that's that storm that we're watching too. It's a 2-headed monster here. We're watching it come up through Providence. We're also watching it come up through Hartford as these 2 storms affect Massachusetts over the next hour 45 minutes. So the warning is also of concern of 5:45 out just to the east of Springfield through Hamden, and also back into Longmeadow too. That is the most concerning storm. Now, we were just looking at some of the winds around that storm and the winds that may be associated with what we call the spin in the cloud, and they're not as intense as they were. So they seem to be weakening just a hair. They're down to about 40 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour, the contrasting wind speeds. So that is a good sign and something that we're watching carefully here as this storm heads in the direction of Springfield. Not directly headed to Springfield, but just to the east of Springfield right now. Let's go over, we just showed you these new watches and warnings. This also surrounding these storms, the rains are incredible, folks. And that's why we have flash flood warnings up through most of Rhode Island. The entire state of Rhode Island is covered in a flash flood warning, and also all of the South Shore right now for those intense rains and surrounding storms. But again, these 2 storms depicted just to the north and east of Hartford and coming out of Providence too, headed through the South Shore, back down into Taunton and Raynham. And the storm track on that, thank you, Chris. Man, you're reading my mind this time. Brockton, it'll be there in about a half an hour. Can almost set your watch to it because we have a good track on these storms. There has been rotation detected in these clouds, but we're not as concerned about a tornado actually coming out of these as we were earlier when they were coming on shore down through Point Judith. But wow, that rain is intense. And it's possible you could still get a quick spin up of wind, or, you know, maybe a mini tornado, a very small, narrow tornado that lasts for just a few minutes. So we're not going to let our guard down with this storm as it moves northeast into Brockton and eventually into the greater Boston area. That is the eventual track of it as it moves out through Boston and possibly up to Cape Ann. Rainfall rates, we've talked about it. You need to pull over to the side of the road if you're in this. You just can barely even see. There's so much rain coming out of these clouds. And this is also going through Narragansett Bay, Fall River, and Taunton. You have more rain through Woonsocket, Milford, and rainfall rates here not to be outdone. The other part of the storm, the intense rain coming into Worcester right now, and also Worcester suburbs, all the way back into Spencer and down into Auburn. Rainfall rate of 3.1 inches per hour. If it were to sit on you, you get 3 inches in an hour, but it's obviously moving. You could still get an inch and a half in no time flat. Everything's moving, progressing along pretty well, and it seems you could just looking at this at first blush, you see this storm as it comes out of Hartford. It seems to have decayed just a little bit. That rotation and that hook, that bend around the backside of the storm, at least in the radar reflection showing us the rain, seems to have diminished a little bit. I'm not saying it's okay to get out of the cellar and, you know, let your guard down out if you're in Munson right now, if you're in Longmeadow or back into Hampton, but, you know, this is something that is a good sign if we're actually looking for good signs as this storm comes into Massachusetts and heads out of Connecticut. Springfield not directly in the path of this storm, but we are just to the east of Springfield on the Mass Pike. There's your rain back through Worcester. Separate entities now. And even though you're in the same storm with the rotation, this rain that's coming through Sturbridge and Palmer and Brimfield right now is just rain. Your rotation is still in Connecticut, if there is any, out of this particular storm. And I'm not certain that we're talking about a tornado on the ground anymore, just based on the information that I'm getting right now. Wilbraham in a half an hour, Palmer in about a half an hour, Bondsville in about 45 minutes, Belchertown in about about 50. I don't know that we'll be able to let our guard down until this thing completely falls apart, though. It's had too much of a track record through Connecticut of wind damage and trees, so we'll just keep you apprised of the whole situation as it crosses through the entire Commonwealth and heads up into southern New Hampshire. This is one of those situations where we have spin in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. Hey, that's guaranteed. So at any time, that could work down through the cloud and work down to the ground as a tornado. So that's a dangerous situation. Elsewhere, it's just tropical rains that we're watching now around Worcester and back into Providence as well.
Fumes and sprays and scented soaps. It's the
which is in northern Connecticut, northwestern Tolland County in northern Connecticut, and that also includes the city of Vernon, and we heard that there are lots of trees down there.